The Galactic Council's discovery. The Galactic Council's grand chamber was filled with murmurs. Representatives of dozens of alien species sat around a massive circular table, their holographic displays flickering with urgent data. The air was thick with unease. Another distress signal, a deep voice rumbled. High Chancellor Vorik, a reptilian Selvar, narrowed his yellow eyes at the projection above the table. A small fleet of ships had disappeared near the outer edges of Council space. "This is the third fleet lost in that region," said Ambassador Trellick, a thin, blue-skinned being with sharp mandibles. "Something is out there." The room fell silent. The Galactic Council had ruled for centuries. No known species dared to challenge them. Yet now, their ships were vanishing without a trace. A new hologram flickered to life. It showed a blurry image, something massive moving through the void. Dozens of ships, larger than anything the Council had seen before, glided across space in perfect formation. Their design was unfamiliar, their origin unknown. But there was something unsettling about them. Something ancient. "These ships are heading toward our territory," said General Krallis, his fur bristling. "We need to stop them before they reach our core worlds." Chancellor Vorik leaned forward, his claws tapping against the table. "Do we have any idea who they belong to?" A young officer hesitated before speaking. "There is an old record from thousands of cycles ago." He swallowed. "They resemble the warships of an extinct species, a species we believed was only a myth." The room tensed. "Which species?" Vorik demanded. The officer's voice was barely above a whisper. "Humans." A long silence followed. Many in the room exchanged uncertain glances. "Impossible," scoffed an elder delegate. "Humans never existed. They were legends, stories told to scare younglings." And yet, the officer gestured at the hologram. "Those ships bear the exact insignia described in ancient texts." Vorik's tail twitched. He had heard the legends. The stories of an aggressive, unpredictable species that once spread across the stars. But they were wiped out long ago, weren't they? "Send a scout ship," he ordered finally. "Find out what we're dealing with." The discovery. Hours later, a single sleek scout ship emerged from hyperspace near the last known location of the missing fleet. Captain Julik, a veteran of the Council forces, sat rigid in his command chair, his 4 eyes scanning the displays. His crew moved quietly around him, their nervous energy palpable. "Sir, we're picking up energy signatures ahead," an officer reported. Julik straightened, visuals on screen. The main view screen flickered, revealing the dark void of space. And then they saw them. A fleet of massive black warships drifted silently, their surfaces gleaming under the distant starlight. They moved with eerie precision, their formation too perfect, too disciplined. Julik's heart pounded. He had seen countless warships before, but never anything like this. "Scan them," he ordered. The sensors whirred, analyzing the unknown vessels, but the results made no sense. "These ships are ancient," his officer whispered, "but their power levels, they are beyond anything we've ever seen." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. How could an ancient fleet be this advanced? A sudden chime broke the silence. "Sir, they are locking weapons on us." Julik's blood ran cold. "Open a channel. We come in peace," he said quickly. For a moment, there was nothing, just silence. Then the comms crackled to life. A voice, deep and controlled, filled the ship. "This is Admiral Kane of the Terran fleet." Julik felt his throat tighten. "Terran? No, it couldn't be." "You have trespassed into human space," the voice continued. "Turn back now." The crew froze. Fear gripped them. "Sir," a trembling officer whispered, "humans. They're real." The screen suddenly cut off, replaced with a single warning message flashing in bold red letters. "Leave immediately, or be destroyed." Julik knew they had no choice. Retreat. Now, as the scout ship turned away, Julik took one last look at the massive fleet. The myths were real, and the galaxy was not prepared for their return. The return of the Lost Warriors. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. The moment Captain Julik's scout ship returned, his report sent shockwaves through the assembly. Whispers of disbelief and fear spread like wildfire. They are real. Ambassador Trellick's mandibles clicked anxiously. After all these centuries, Captain Julik stood before them, his face pale. Not only are they real, he said, his voice unsteady, they are stronger than we ever imagined. The high-ranking officials exchanged worried glances. The humans were supposed to be a myth. An elder shouted, his tendrils trembling. "They're no myth," Julik replied. "They have warships unlike anything we've seen. Their technology, it surpasses ours." Chancellor Vorik's claws tapped against the table. He had spent his life maintaining order across the stars. And now, a ghost from history had returned. "We cannot afford panic," Vorik said firmly. "We must make contact." "Make contact," General Krellis growled. "They threatened our scout ship. They will not negotiate." "They warned us," Julik said carefully, "but they didn't fire." Vorik's eyes narrowed. "Then perhaps they are not the mindless warlords of legend." He turned to his aides. "Send a diplomatic envoy. Immediately." A meeting in the void. A sleek silver diplomat vessel left the Council's capital world, heading toward the coordinates of the Terran fleet. Inside, Ambassador Trellick sat nervously, his claws clicking against the metal table. The journey was silent, each alien on board lost in their own thoughts. Finally, the ship arrived. Before them, the Terran fleet hung in space like a silent storm. The warships were enormous, their dark hulls absorbing light, making them appear like shadows against the stars. A single transmission came through. "You are approaching Terran space. Identify yourself." Trellick took a deep breath and activated the comms. "This is Ambassador Trellick of the Galactic Council. We come in peace." A long silence followed. Then, a reply. "Docking bay doors opening. You may proceed." Inside the Terran warship, the moment the delegation stepped aboard, they felt the difference. Unlike the sleek, glowing halls of the Council ships, the Terran vessel was built for war. Thick metal walls, no unnecessary decorations. Every corridor felt like a fortress. Then they saw them. Humans. They stood in crisp uniforms, their eyes sharp, their movements precise. Their expressions were unreadable, neither hostile nor welcoming. But their presence alone radiated power. A tall figure approached. His uniform bore golden insignia. His piercing blue eyes locked onto Trellick. "I am Admiral Kane," he said. "Welcome aboard." Trellick swallowed hard. We believed your kind were long extinct." Admiral Kane smirked. "Clearly, we are not." The tension in the air was suffocating. "We wish to understand," Trellick said carefully. "Where have the humans been? How did you survive?" Kane's expression hardened. "You abandoned us." The word sent chills down Trellick's spine. "Once, humans stood among the stars," Kane continued. "But when war came, the Council turned its back. You left us to die." Trellick's mandibles twitched. The records of that era were fragmented, filled with contradictions. Had the Council truly abandoned the humans? Kane stepped closer. "For centuries, we rebuilt. We waited. And now we have returned." Trellick felt the weight of those words. Humans had not just survived. They had thrived. And now, they were ready to take back their place in the galaxy. The truth buried in history. Silence filled the air as Admiral Kane's words hung over the Galactic Council delegation like a heavy storm cloud. "You abandoned us." Ambassador Trellick's mandibles twitched nervously. The accusation was sharp, cutting through centuries of forgotten history. We do not understand," he stammered. "The records." "Lies," Kane interrupted, His piercing blue eyes locked onto the alien. "Your records were rewritten to erase us. But we remember." The humans in the room remained still, their presence alone exuding an aura of quiet power. Trellick exchanged glances with his team. The humans were not just surviving. They were thriving in ways the Council had never imagined. "What happened?" Trellick finally asked. "How did you?" "You will see for yourself," Kane interrupted, pressing a command on his wrist console. The ship's dim lights flickered, and the walls hummed as a holographic display activated in the center of the room. The Forgotten War. The projection showed a star system, one Trellick recognized. A planet glowed at its center. Earth. The image shifted, and what followed made his blood run cold. Explosions. Alien ships, ships belonging to an ancient council fleet, rained fire upon Earth's surface. Cities burned. The planet itself seemed to cry out in agony. "We fought," Kane said, his voice quiet but filled with restrained fury. "Your ancestors came in the name of order. They called us a threat, and when we resisted," he gestured to the burning planet. Trellick's breath hitched. He had read many histories of the Galactic Council's rise to power. Some spoke of lost worlds, civilizations that disappeared. But no one had ever suggested that humanity was among them. "How did you survive?" Trellick whispered. Kane's expression darkened. "We did what we had to." A hologram shifted. Now it showed massive ships, Terran warships, escaping into the void. Silent, hidden, waiting. "For centuries," Kane continued, "we disappeared, we rebuilt, we watched as your council spread its influence. And now," he turned to Trellick, his voice unwavering, "we are back." A dangerous offer. The weight of Kane's words pressed down on the delegation. This was no mere encounter with a lost civilization. This was a reckoning. But instead of anger, Trellick saw something else in Kane's expression. An opportunity. "We were not there when this happened," Trellick said cautiously. "Many of us were not even born when your people vanished." Kane narrowed his eyes but said nothing. Trellick took a deep breath. "The Council has changed. If what you say is true, then there are those who will want to know the truth." Silence. Then Kane smirked. "So the Council wants to make peace now." His voice held a sharp edge. Trellick hesitated. "It is better than war." Kane studied him for a long moment before turning away. "Perhaps." Then he looked back, his smirk fading. "But war is coming, whether you want it or not." The return begins. As the delegation left the warship, the Terran fleet remained motionless, watching. Trellick's thoughts raced. Humanity had returned, and they were not the same species the Council had once known. Stronger, smarter, and ready. The question now was not whether the Council would accept them. It was whether they would survive what came next. The Council's dilemma. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. The return of the humans was not just a historical revelation. It was a crisis. They survived. One of the elder counselors, a reptilian being with shimmering green scales, slammed his clawed hand on the table. Impossible. The records were clear. Humanity was wiped out. "No," Ambassador Trellick said, his voice tight. "They were betrayed." The chamber fell silent. Trellick stepped forward, activating the holoprojector in the center of the room. The haunting images of Earth burning filled the air once more. The Council members recoiled, their faces shifting between shock, guilt, and fear. "They remember everything," Trellick continued. "And now, they have warships that could rival our own." Chancellor Vorik, the most powerful figure in the Council, leaned forward, his mandibles clicking in thought. "What do they want?" Trellick hesitated. "They have not made demands, yet." General Krallis, the Supreme Commander of the Galactic Fleet, stood. "We cannot wait for them to act. If they seek revenge, we must strike first." A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Trellick's eyes darkened. They don't understand. Attacking them would be a mistake, he warned. They are prepared for war. If we fire the first shot, it will not end in our favor. Vorik exhaled slowly. Then we must negotiate. Krallis scoffed. Negotiate? With ghosts from the past. Ghosts that could wipe us out. Trellick shot back. Silence. Finally, Vorik spoke. Send an envoy to their fleet. We must end this before war becomes inevitable. The human ultimatum. Days later, a council battleship approached the Terran fleet under a flag of truce. Inside, a delegation of high-ranking council officials stepped into the massive warship's command deck. Unlike before, this time they came with answers, not just questions. Admiral Kane was waiting for them. "We need to talk," Chancellor Vorik said carefully. Kane leaned back in his chair, ice cold. "Talk." He let the word hang in the air. "Now you want to talk." Vorik ignored the hostility. "The Council has changed since the war. Most of us did not know what happened to humanity." Kane's gaze was unreadable. "And yet, here you are. Afraid." Vorik didn't deny it. "We do not want war." Kane studied him, then smirked. "Neither do we." The council members let out a quiet sigh of relief, but then Kane leaned forward. "But we are not here to beg for a place in your galaxy." His voice was calm, but there was an undeniable edge beneath it. "We are here to take back what is rightfully ours." The room tensed. Trellick stepped forward. "What do you want?" Kane's smirk faded. "Recognition, justice, and power." The delegation exchanged uneasy glances. "Power," Krallis growled. "You wish to rule." Kane chuckled. "No, we wish to survive. And we will not let the Council decide our fate ever again." Vorik took a deep breath. "Then what is your demand?" Kane's eyes gleamed. "You will recognize humanity as an independent power, equal to the Council." Silence. Krallis clenched his fists. "That is unacceptable." Kane's expression darkened. "Then prepare for war." A dangerous choice. The delegation returned to the Council in turmoil. Some wanted to accept the demand, fearing the wrath of the Terran fleet. Others refused, unwilling to grant humans equal status after so many years. Vorik sat at the head of the chamber, deep in thought. If they denied humanity, war was inevitable. But if they accepted, it would change the balance of power forever. One choice would lead to peace, the other to extinction. And time was running out. The shadows of war. The Council's decision had been made. Chancellor Vorik stood before the assembly, his face grim. "We will not recognize humanity as an equal power." His voice echoed through the grand chamber. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the councillors, but some faces, especially Ambassador Trellick's, remained troubled. "You are making a mistake," Trellick said, his voice firm but controlled. "They will not accept this." Vorik's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Then we will remind them why the Council has ruled the galaxy for centuries." General Krallis stepped forward. "Our fleets are prepared. If they challenge us, we will eliminate them before they can become a real threat." Trellick shook his head. "They don't understand what they're about to provoke." "Have you forgotten what we saw?" he pressed. "Their warships match our own. Their technology is unlike anything we expected. If we go to war, we might not win." Silence. Vorik narrowed his eyes. "Are you suggesting we bow to them?" Trellick exhaled sharply. "I am suggesting we survive." But his words fell on deaf ears. The Council's decision was final. Orders were sent. The Galactic fleet was mobilizing. The humans were ready. The moment the Council's rejection was transmitted, the Terran fleet moved. No hesitation, no second chances. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of his warship, eyes locked onto the holographic display of Council space. Red markers, enemy fleets, were already forming defensive lines. "They chose war," Commander Silva muttered. Kane smirked. "They chose wrong." With a single command, The human fleet surged forward. Their strategy was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Where the Council relied on massive formations, human ships moved like hunters, darting between enemy lines, striking hard and vanishing before counterattacks could land. Where the Council fought with brute force, humanity used precision and deception. And then, humanity revealed its true weapon, the Silent Armada. As the first Council fleets engaged the Terran warships, something terrifying happened. Their sensors flickered, communications distorted, entire ships disappeared from the battlefield. It was only then that the Council realized humanity had mastered stealth technology. A second fleet, completely invisible to all detection systems, emerged inside Council-controlled space, behind their defenses, behind their homeworlds. Krallus's eyes widened in horror as alarms blared across the Council's military headquarters. This isn't possible. But it was. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for centuries, and the war had only just begun. The fall of Arvaxis Prime. Panic gripped the Galactic Council's core worlds. The Silent Armada had bypassed every defensive line, striking deep into the heart of Council space. The first planet to fall was Arvaxis Prime, a fortress world, home to the largest shipyards in the sector. Admiral Kane stood on the command deck of the HSS Revenant, eyes locked on the burning world below. Columns of black smoke rose from shattered cities, while once mighty Council warships now drifted in ruin. "Status report," he ordered. Commander Silva grinned. "Council forces are in full retreat. Their fleet was crippled before they even knew we were here." Kane nodded, but he wasn't satisfied yet. "Deploy ground teams," he said. "I want the Council to understand. This is not just a battle. This is a reckoning." The Council's last hope. In the depths of space, a secret emergency meeting was held on the hidden world of Zorath 9. Chancellor Vorik sat at the head of the table, surrounded by what remained of the Council's leadership. For the first time in history, they were afraid. "How did they do this?" one counselor whispered. "How did they strike so deep into our territory?" Trellick, the only one who had warned them, exhaled sharply. "Because they are not like us. We spent centuries in comfort, believing war would never reach us. They spent centuries preparing for a war we didn't know was coming." General Krallus slammed a fist on the table. "We can still fight. We still have fleets. We still have armies." Trellick met his gaze. "Do you? Because the humans have not lost a single battle." Silence. Vorik's voice was barely above a whisper. "Then what do you suggest?" Trellick hesitated. "We surrender." The entire chamber erupted in outrage. "Never," Krallus roared. "They will burn our worlds." Another counselor shouted. Trellick narrowed his eyes. "Are you so sure?" Krallus clenched his fists. "And if they refuse? If they want revenge? Then what?" Trellick took a deep breath. "Then we will finally understand what it feels like to be at the mercy of another." The Council had a choice: fight and face extinction, or surrender and hope for mercy. Humanity's final move. As the Council debated, humanity prepared its final strike. Admiral Kane stood aboard the HSS Revenant, watching as a new fleet emerged from hyperspace. It was twice the size of the first. Humanity had not sent its full strength. Not yet. Kane smiled. "This war is over," he said. And for the first time in galactic history, humanity stood as the dominant power. The terms of surrender. The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for millennia. Now they sat in silence, their power shattered, their fleets broken. For the first time in history, they were no longer the dominant force in the galaxy. The meeting was held aboard the HSS Revenant, the Terran flagship, a massive warship, sleek and black, a predator among the stars. It hovered over Zorath 9, the Council's last refuge. Chancellor Vorik sat across from Admiral Kane. His once proud posture was slumped, his claws tapping nervously against the metal table. Around him, Council representatives, once rulers of vast empires, now looked like cornered prey. Admiral Kane leaned forward. His expression was unreadable, his presence commanding. "You asked for this meeting," he said. "Let's hear your terms." Vorik swallowed hard. We acknowledge humanity's power. We request a ceasefire." Kane raised an eyebrow. "Request?" Trellick, the only counselor who had truly understood humanity, spoke next. "We surrender," he said. His voice was steady, though his eyes betrayed his uncertainty. "We ask for your mercy." The room fell into tense silence. Kane studied them. This was the moment. He could end it all here, wipe the Council from existence, claim every system for humanity. Or he could do something no empire had ever done before. He leaned back in his chair. "The way I see it, you have two choices," Kane said. "You can surrender completely. Let humanity take control of your worlds, your fleets, your resources. Or," Vorik's eyes widened, "or," Kane smirked, "you can stand beside us. A new galactic order." Murmurs erupted among the counselors. "What does that mean?" Krellis asked cautiously. Kane stood, pacing slowly around the room. "It means the Galactic Council no longer rules alone. It means humanity doesn't just conquer, we build." He turned to face them. "Join us. Serve alongside us. Learn from us. Because whether you accept it or not, the future belongs to humanity." The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. This was unprecedented. No empire had ever given its enemies a choice beyond submission or death. Vorik finally spoke. "And if we refuse?" Kane's expression darkened. "Then you'll see what happens when humanity doesn't offer mercy." Silence. The council had no choice. They bowed their heads. Trellick was the first to speak. "We accept." One by one, the others followed. The age of humanity begins. With the stroke of a pen, the Galactic Council fell, and the human dominion rose. But humanity was not just another conqueror. They were something new. They did not erase the past. They reshaped it. They did not rule with fear. They ruled with strength and purpose. And as the first human-led galactic alliance took shape, one truth became clear. The myths were real. The humans had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same.